Hello, Namaste, I'm Divya and thanks for tuning in. As usual, I have a fun project for you today. Let's get started. The base I've picked today is a cute square box. This one is made of wood. I think this is birch wood, I'm not really sure. The box and the napkin that I'm using are from this small business called Olive by Design. It's run by Priya. I will leave a link to her website in the description box below. I start off by taking off all the hardware and sanding the area slightly just to make sure it's nice and clean and smooth. Whenever I am using napkin for decoupage, I'd like to give a base coat to my product. I either use a gesso or some chalk paints. Today I'm using some chalk paints in white color, and I will give a thin even coat throughout the box. One coat was enough for me, but if you think this is patchy for you, you could always go in and give it a second coat. If your paint feels too thick, add a few drops of water. I was feeling a little fancy here, and you can see me spray water from a bottle, but you could just have water in a bowl next to you, and a few drops will work like magic. I keep a clear plastic sheet handy just so that the lid does not close shut while I'm painting. And once the varnish is done, I wouldn't need this anymore. Once you've decided what napkin you want to use, make sure to do a dry fit. You saw me doing that in the beginning of the video. Just make sure that the main element, the design element or the motif is fitting well within your base, and then proceed to tear. I usually like to tear with my hands, and I don't use a pair of scissors. The napkin is torn on all four sides and it's ready to go. The next step is glue. I generally prefer using gel medium, and that's what you'll see me using in this tutorial as well. These decoupage napkins are generally 3 layers. The topmost printed layer is what we'll use, and we'll separate the other 2 layers. But don't throw this away just yet. My friend Vinita Bajla gave me this amazing tip. Roll this paper into a ball and just keep it handy. When you're trying to stick the napkin to the surface, using this paper to press it down really helps. My hands are generally sweaty, so I don't use my hands. They could tear the paper. Any rag that's lying around, any piece of cloth could be dirty. It generally has paint on it, and any other paper could be too harsh. So this ball of paper really helps. I keep it till the end of the project and then discard it. If you've seen me decoupage before, you know that I like to work in small sections. That's what I've done here as well. I've glued down the top and I'm now working on the sides. You'll also see me coming in with a pair of scissors and cutting that paper exactly where those 2 ends meet, the corner. This is so that the paper is able to fold easily without any wrinkles. You can skip this step right now and come back to it in the very end. At this point, before I start painting, I like to seal my napkin. Seal it from the top and seal all the edges, just to make sure that when I start painting, and if any paint comes over the napkin, it doesn't blot and look blotchy and blotty. It won't soak in and ruin the paper. It'll act like a barrier. So sealing it right now really helps me. Again, you could use Mod Podge, but I'm continuing with the gel medium. After gluing down, I'll be painting the sides. I'm using a combination of chalk paints and acrylic paints. I'm roughly picking out some shades of paint that I think will go well with the napkin. Most of the times, I won't be able to use these paints directly. I will need to mix them together to find the right shade. The shades of chalk paints I'm using are Distant Haze, Khaki Moss, and Great Grey. And the shades of acrylic paints I'm using are Antique Bronze, White, and Black. Once I've decided the shades of paints I want to use, I put them out all on a palette. I use small quantities only, and I start mixing the shades that I want. I also mix in small quantities only. This just gives me more control. It doesn't dry up, and I'm not stuck with a lot of paint of the wrong shade, and I don't mind mixing this several times. And most of the time I'm able to get the shade I want, and sometimes the shades are slightly different, and I don't mind that. If you want the exact shade that you're mixing to be consistent, and you could then mix it in bigger quantities. Most of the time, if I'm using a single shade, I use it right out of a bottle. I use a ready-made shade. But if I'm making a custom color, if I'm making a custom shade, then I don't mind mixing it several times and having it slightly off once in a while, and because I'm going for that look, and I don't mind that. I just heard that and that sounded like I was just rambling. I want to quickly summarize what I was saying. I mix in small quantities. It just works better for me. This isn't a hard and fast rule. It is just something that works best for me. After I finished painting one side of the box, I took a break, got something to eat, gave Drona a kiss, and then came up to my studio again. This made me slowing down, taking a break, and not painting in a hurry, made me realize that the shades of grey I was using were slightly on the cooler side, and I would like them to be slightly warmer. The warmer tones were, the napkin had warmer tones, and the way to achieve that was add a dash of brown and green. I used acrylic paints in burnt sienna and green. Just added a dash of these, and that made a huge difference. I'll show you the side that just had grays, and then the side that has a little bit of that brown and green, and you'll see what a huge difference it makes, and how nicely this now the new colors now suit and match the napkin. I will paint over that first side with these warmer tones, and all the sides will match. Another tip that I have for you is also have another clean, straight, non-deformed brush handy. You can see that the brush that I usually use for blending does not look like a brush anymore, but it works really well for blending. It gives me that soft, cloudy look that I want. But there are times when I need a precise strokes or application, and for that, having a clean straight brush handy is really important. The last side is dark. At this point, you will also see me add a dash of blue. I'm not sure if the camera was picking up the shade, but there is a drapery around this area. There is, I think, either her dress or the curtain or the tablecloth, and it does have a hint of blue, and you'll see me try and replicate that. I used very little paint here. You can actually, honestly, if I was doing this again, I would go over it with a little more paint. You can see that white base coat peeking through. I did notice this while I was painting. I thought it didn't matter. It wasn't sticking out, and it didn't really matter to me. I felt it just looked good. It added a character to the whole piece, so I left it alone. But the rest of the sides don't have that white peeking through much, because they're also lighter than this. On this darker side, the white bits did show up a little bit, but that's fine. If this is showing up for you, you could go over it with a second coat of paint. Once I've done painting, I will go over, you could stamp at this point, stamp or use some stencils. I decided to leave it just as it is. I like that plain piece, and I will now varnish this entire piece. I will varnish all the sides, and then fix up that hardware, and it'll be ready to go. Another tip that I'd like to share is when you're blending, try and work in as many layers as possible. So let's say you're trying to blend a shade of black and brown, and what you want to do is, let's say you have black coming in and you stop black at a certain point. Don't start the brown at that point and then start abruptly painting in brown. What you want to do is kind of gradually fade black off into brown. And so the reason how and the way to get that is, let's say you paint some black, and you start painting brown over that black, come into that black a little bit, and maybe go over that black into the brown a little bit again. So it is a few layers working on top of each other. That is how you will get a soft blended look. Don't stop exactly where the black has stopped and start painting in brown. That'll just look like a zebra crossing or something. That'll just stand out and look too sharp, and it'll look like it has come out of nowhere and look a little fake. You will need to go black into brown, brown into black, and a little of black into brown again. That is how you'll get a lot of you'll get a nice blended look. And because you're using very little paint, again, this helps, because when you pick up that piece, it'll still look it'll look very nicely painted, but you can't see that layers and layers of thick paint just plastered on it. I decided to paint the hardware black. It was of great quality and everything. It looked good, but it was shiny, and I thought black would really look nice. I'm using chalk paints. Remember, chalk paints can adhere to almost any surface. In this case, it'll stick to metal really well. There will still be slight wear and tear, but I think it'll just add to the charm of the piece, and it won't really be a problem. One of the last steps I'd like to do is either add my name or my brand at the bottom of the piece. If I can remember, that is. I'm using a rubber stamp from rubberstamps.com. They're a US based company and they make amazing precise stamps. A friend of mine got them for me from the US, and I'm using archival inks. Like the name suggests, it's archival, it's fade proof, it's water resistant, and it also does not react with the varnish that I will hit over it. The varnish I prefer using is called Ecuador. It's by Asian Paints. It's a water-based PU varnish, and this is meant for furniture, but it works really well on all of my decoupage projects. I usually take some out in a small jar so that I don't contaminate the big jar, and it's easier for me to access. And I add a little bit of water, and I kind of just eyeball it. There are instructions at the back of this varnish as to how much water you could dilute it with, but I just add a few drops, and then I usually use it out of this jar. This box, I'm just giving it one even coat on all sides, and I will let it dry. You could go over it with a second coat if you prefer, but I think one coat will do just nicely. That plastic sheet comes really handy again at this point. While the varnish is still wet and it needs time to dry and cure, I let that plastic sheet sit in between the lid. I let it sit for a couple of days, make sure that the varnish is completely dry before I pull it out. This will ensure that the lid does not shut and seal. Once I finish varnishing the piece, I let it sit for a couple of days, make sure it's nice and dry, and then put on the hardware. This is it, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. I tried to include as many details and tips as possible about blending. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below, or write to me on Facebook or Instagram. My handle is Yelling Yellow. Let me know if this helped, if you've enjoyed this format of video, if you want me to make more of these, and I will definitely try to do my best. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.